Greetings, movie fans. William, the movie fan here. So I want to talk about the show Masters of the Universe Revelations, because it's not called He-Man anymore, and we all know that. And I figured, hey, everybody else is dogpiling on top of Kevin Smith. Why not me, right? Now, myself, I was never really a fan of the original show, only because I was a little bit too old for it. It was, in my opinion, geared towards little kids. With the kind of the big weird action figures and stuff. And the show came out in 1983, and I was like 15 to 16 years old. So I was driving a car, working a part-time job, girls, MTV with actual music videos, things like that. So I never was really a fan of this show. I'd watch maybe older cartoons because I was still a fan of comic books and cartoons at that time. And I still had Star Wars action figures because I had collected them since I was a kid. I got the first empty box, as they would say, from the old 1970. I think it was this Christmas of '77, I believe. It was a while ago. So, but I was like 9 years old. I still had that kind of stuff. And I would watch the older, like GI Joe, kind of Thundercats, with a little older kind of cartoons. Masters of the Universe, He-Man just seemed a little silly to me. And I was coming off of Thunder the Barbarian in 1980, and I was about 12 to 13 when that came out. So that was a little more. I mean, Thunder was a little darker and edgier than He-Man was back then. Now, the show today, the not He-Man show, the Masters of the Universe Revelation show. Again, I personally am a big fan of more, grown-up style animation. There's just not a lot of it out there. There's a lot of Japanese anime, which is great, but there's not enough American kind of stuff. I mean, the superhero stuff just kind of falls a little short, right? I think Thunder was a little bit ahead of its time, and then everything kind of backpedaled in that time. And then the '90s came out. I think it had some decent stuff out there. My one of my personal favorites was the Prince Valiant cartoon, which was a little kind of religious oriented a little bit, but I still think because people died in it, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. And then of course Samurai Jack, which I'm a huge fan of because you can kind of see the collection right up here. That was good. I mean, just stylized and brilliant. I mean, there were some silly episodes, but overall it was very more mature, and done martial arts, as you can tell by the stuff up here, that it really spoke to me in that regard too, because it was seemed like there are very good messages in the show, and so that's terrific. But let's see. So with this show, Masters of the Universe Revelations, I don't hate it, but I don't love it, and it's kind of in the middle. I mean, the animation is great, of course. The sound is great. The voice actors are pretty good. I'm not gonna argue that. Obviously a lot of hard work went into it, but in terms of the story, it doesn't really fly, in my opinion. It's kind of heavy-handed because, and there's gonna be spoilers here, but it's kind of heavy-handed in that. Well, basically, He-Man dies the first episode, and you don't see him again. You might see him in a few flashback scenes, but you don't really see him again at all, ever in the rest of the show. I mean, at the very end, Prince Adam is there and starts to become He-Man, but then he's stabbed in the back by Skeletor, who apparently shows up again because of magic and whatnot. But it's interesting because if you watch the show, it obviously is setting up Tila to be the new Master of the Universe, He-Man, head, whatever you want to call it, Master of the Universe. Let's say it that way, because obviously not He-Man or She-Woman. I don't know, because they talked to the sorceress, and they, Cringer said something about this, and Orca said something about it, and so everybody's kind of alluding to, well, what's inside you, Tila, and you're just not, you're scared, or you're more important than you realize. She's like, shut up, I don't want to hear it, and I'm just like, man, can we like heavy-handed and ham-fisted even harder than that? That's crazy. It's like, ugh. So, and that's probably why I don't really care for this style of the Americanized kind of storylines, because it just, to me, just seems just too heavy-handed. if you went back to say Thunder the Barbarian, it wasn't as heavy-handed. I mean, there were episodes where Ariel saved the day. There were episodes when Thunder saved the day. There were episodes when Uklu was featured, and so they all kind of were sort of equal partners. They weren't equal in that they all had the same abilities. Obviously, they didn't. But they were all equal in that they all contributed what their strengths were, and they all made up for the other kind of weakness. Whereas Thundar was, strong and cunning and brave. Ariel was the smart one, and she knew more about things. She was the wise one. She knew how to, charge the sun sword and things like that. I mean, so to me, that's more reasonable. A much better animated show on Netflix is The Record of Grand Crest War, which is, I just couldn't stop watching it. This was great. The animation was great. It was kind of a computer generated for some of it, but also kind of the animation stylized a little bit. Certainly the Masters of the Universe, in terms of the coloring and everything, looks a little more like the old style animation, but obviously modernized. So that's pretty cool. So the look of it's good. The sound of it's good. But the storyline, I don't know. I mean, the first episode, He-Man dies, saving the universe. Skeletor dies. Okay, yay, Skeletor's dead, so the big bad guy's gone. But so is He-Man and Prince Adam. So Teela gets mad at her father and the Queen and Orko for not telling her. I mean, selfish, let's say here. Oh, wow, let's not be too selfish. And I just think it's a poor character choice. If she's gonna stomp her feet and poke out her lip and hold her breath because, oh, how dare you not tell me this? And if Prince Adam didn't want you to know, he's the prince. Shut your mouth. I mean, that's just the bottom line. If the king tells you to do something, you do it. You don't go, well, you start complaining about it. And the other thing is, they just lost their only son. Why would you berate them and almost cuss them out when they're grieving? I mean, yeah, she's grieving too, but for crying out loud, you don't kick a parent and when their kid just died. I mean, come on. That's the other thing. I'm just like, no, that's just wrong. And just how they kind of heavy hand everything in the show, the storyline, I don't really buy it. And that's a shame really, because they really could have done kind of that whole thing. The other thing they do a lot that American animation does, and sometimes anime does it too, is mostly when the good guys are fighting the bad guys, the good guys stop in the middle of fighting and they'll do like exposition. And that annoys me to no end, because I'm like, look, the bad guys are going to just stab you. They're not going to do all this really, look, everybody, we have to get together and fight the evil because of this and because of that and blah, 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 blah. And if we don't work together, we're going to, they're going to win and blah, 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 blah. It's like, look, if y'all don't figure that out by now, I don't know what to tell you. You're supposed to be the heroes of the story. You should figure that out already. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So, I'm not going to doll pile on Kevin Smith because he lied to everybody, which I don't know why he did. It's just kind of dumb in my opinion. I mean, he should have just said, hey, I'm going to do a more modern uptake of it. Yes, he mentioned something in one of the interviews that Prince Adam, He-Man, sacrificed himself. It's heroic. He's a hero. He's supposed to do that. Absolutely. Nothing wrong with that. But to kind of heavy-hand it and say, like, well, Teela was going to be the new, master of the universe anyway, because everybody was like, well, this is all the specialness in you and all this other stuff in you. And I'm just like, okay. So if you're not going to sideline it like he said he wasn't going to do, but he did, and then say, well, try to justify it. So, well, He-Man, he was a hero. And he said, I don't know what everybody's complaining about. It's like, well, complaining because you lied. And I don't know. I just think that's kind of ridiculous. Maybe some people are complaining a little bit too much, and people say, well, the fanboy tears or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But hey, people like what you like. That's bottom line. And that's the other thing, too, is people said, when you're dealing with, like, race swapping or sex swapping or whatever you want to call it, when they change a character from what it was originally to something new, people go, well, what's the difference? It's all the same. It's just a character. And it's like, well, it's not that big of a deal. And then myself and my friend Mikey McBlam on McBlam Entertainment have said this, is like, well, if it's not a big deal, why change it? Why not just use what's there? And that's my point. If it's not a big deal, then why make a big deal of changing it? Why not just let the character be the character and play that character? Because myself, I want to see new characters. I don't want to see them, oh, let's make Superman black, or, oh, let's make, this other character a girl, or like, in this case. And I'm like, Well, that's fine, and that's a new story. Okay, great, but don't sit there and portray it as the original thing, or say it's still the same thing, but then you just change that, and now it completely changes the dynamic. We already know the story, so what's new? I don't know. I mean, if you're going to create new adventures, create new adventures. Why not, in the show, have, He-Man fighting Skeletor instead of being dead? He's fighting him on a cosmic plane level, and maybe Tila and everybody have to, I don't know, go to the underworld or go to the whatever and find the magic whatever to help him, come back and rescue him because he's fighting in, like, in the Phantom Zone or something. Because he has to come back because of the world's ending, the magic or whatever. So the same thing could happen, and you can still make Tila great and awesome because she already was. It's not like you had to change it. And I think the Sarah Michelle Gellar, who voices the modern Tila, said something to the effect of, "Well, the original show didn't have any strong female characters." And I'm like, well, I've not really watched the show that much, but I know I watched it enough to know, or I've seen enough because my best friend and friends had little brothers who would watch it, and maybe we would see bits and pieces before, like Thundercats or GI Joe or something. But we saw it enough to know, well, gee, the head of, like, the person in charge of Castle Grayskull who gave Prince Adam the power of He-Man is a female. So how do you say there's no strong female characters? She is the guardian of Castle Grayskull and basically the protector of Eternia in that regard. And then you have Tila, who's basically now captain of the guards. How is that not a strong? I don't get that. I don't know why people say stuff like that when it's obviously not true. And people will say stuff like, well, the fanboys don't like strong women. And then, like, if you go to, say, I don't know, Robot Head or Critical Drinker, they already have lists and lists and lists of all these great female characters from movies that, we're all super big fans of because they're good, well-written characters. I don't know, but that's just my opinion. But hey, like what you like, and if you're gonna go with a property that's sort of an older property that you want to modernize, just tell people, hey, we're gonna modernize the thing. Like it if you want, like it, don't like it if you don't want. But we're not gonna try to trick you, because why would you want to trick them? That doesn't make any sense. Just make what you want to make, and tell people it's like, oh, we're gonna do a different take on it. Okay, fine. I'm not saying I would watch it, but at least it'd be straightforward about it, and people go, oh, this is something different and new. Maybe they would introduce it to the children because it's close to what they used to watch, but it's kind of like, that thing you used to do as a kid, but now it's sort of like to the next level. It's like, I don't know. I mean, it could be video games because, when I was a kid, we had video games and console games and stuff, but nowadays the video games are way better. So it's sort of like what you did as a kid, but it's just, I don't know, enhanced maybe. I don't know. Or just create new stories. I mean, my friend Mikey McBlann and I would always say, just create new stories. We want to see new stories. We don't want to see the same old stuff and then decide to change it to something else because reasons. I don't know. But let me know what you think. Like the smash button, smash the like button, click it, boop it, whatever you want to do. Just, say, hey, I appreciate it. If you got comments, go put those below and tell me, your thoughts on, the Master of the Universe, Kevin Smith, et cetera, et cetera. Like I said, myself, I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. It was, in my opinion, it's almost worse to make it sort of just bland, because it's like you want to say you're taking chances, but you're not really taking chances. Because you're trying to play it safe by saying, oh, I'm not, when someone calls you out, like Clownfish TV did, calls them out saying, we heard from this insider that it's going to be, sidelining He-Man, hence the name of the show isn't He-Man, it's Masters Universe, and they're going to make Tila the main character. And Kevin's just like, no, Tila's not the main character. He-Man's still the main character. And then, of course, Tila is in every episode, and He-Man's in one, or maybe 1 3/4, because he's sort of in it as Prince Adam at the end, and he's sort of in it in like a flashback scene or two, I think. But in general sense, Tila has the most screen time, and she's in everything going on there. And I mean, we want good characters. It doesn't matter what their sex or race or anything is. It doesn't matter how old they are. They can be an old character that's great. They can be a young character great. We don't care about that. We don't want to be, I don't know, tricked or fooled or whatever. And that's the other thing I was thinking about was if we have well written characters, that's important because you want the character to be well written and have its motivations and all that other fun stuff. Doesn't matter what the medium is. I mean, if you read a book, you want the character to do the thing and whatever, be the hero, the whatever. And that makes it enjoyable. And in my opinion, just making it kind of like, I didn't hate it, I didn't love it. It's like, that's almost like a worse sin. It's like, I mean, if you're going to make it bad, make it terrible. And people are like, oh my God, it's the worst film. Like, you know, like Plan 9 from Outer Space is just the worst film ever, but it's remembered for that. As opposed to just like, don't like, I don't know, don't bland us to death with sort of like lazy writing and bad choices. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But anyway, this has been me, William, the movie fan. And if you have any other suggestions of things I might, should watch, and what do you think? And let me know. I'll let you know what I think, and I'll be fair and honest and break down like, I liked it in parts, but maybe not, or like, oh, this is great, check it out. But just let me know below. And this has been me, William, the movie fan, saying, you stay tuned. Bye.